Welcome to the show. My name is Charlton with Big C. This is Charlton and Big C Sports coming to you worldwide on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C. And them good old boys down south, I want to say bienvenidos to all of our listeners in Latin America, also across the pond in London, England, as well as Paris, France. Of course, you good old boys in Canada, we love you in Africa, the Big C tribe. But there's no one we love more than the good old boys down south in the land of the free and the home of the brave on a beautiful April the 22nd, 2020. Rondo Deportes, Big C. How's it going for you good old boys down south?
Well, Charlton, down here, the only thing that's close to being free is gasoline. I mean, when you can fill up an SUV for just $40, you got to enjoy that. But the greatest thing about that is that we're less than 24 hours away from the NFL draft. So that means with that full tank of gas, I can make a run down to the liquor store, pick up a couple of cases, and stay greatly hydrated tomorrow night.
Well, make sure you don't drink and drive as you're driving down to the liquor store. Big C, it's all fair and level war. I want to say today's show is sponsored by your Northern California Cadillac dealers, home of the all-new Cadillac Escalade, the standard of the world. And when you go by and test drive yours, tell them Charlton and Big C sent you. And I also want to say you can follow Big C Sports, powered by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he'll do his thing, and I really appreciate that. You can also follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon and Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. I know everybody's pausing, Big C, like the whole world's on pause. Today is actually Earth Day, so we're all congratulating people on making it through Earth Day. We have a Veterans Crisis Line. Really love giving it out because people are using it and they're getting help. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. If you're online, go to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can really get some help, Big C. Why is that so important to you?
Well, Charlton, it's very important that we look out for our great veterans in this country on a daily basis. But who would have thought that the Veterans Crisis Hotline would have been so prevalent in all of American society, Charlton, when we think about the troubling times that everybody's going through these days, and you know, the mental crisis as much as the physical crisis. I mean, people are not used to being sedentary in America. They're used to having the freedom of movement. And when you're cramped up and you've had the altering of lifestyles that we've had here in this country, Charlton, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline is a great segue to have someone to talk to talk to you through these crisis times that are going on. Unfortunately, you know, with our veteran situation, Charlton, we've lost so many of those to suicide, and that's how this line was created. But it's still there to help. And unfortunately, we're losing Americans to suicide with this pandemic that's going along. Yeah. But anyone who's feeling trouble or pressure in their lives, if you know somebody in those troubled times and situations, don't hesitate in giving out the National Suicide Prevention Hotline number.
Yeah, give that number out. It helps, and it's free. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. Or you can text 838-255. That's 838-255. Or simply go online to veteranscrisisline.net. That's veteranscrisisline.net, and you can get some help. Also, very happy announcing affiliation with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants when they start swinging the bat again. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal is simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers to put their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's does it. Car dealerships do it, and you can watch your real estate work for you. 800-772-8624, 800-772-8624, and let the miracle of TV go to work for you. Big C, a lot of good things going on in today. I really hope that you, when you go down to get the libations from the store, you know you still got some in the backyard that don't come with sales tax, Big C.
Yeah, but it's always nice, Charlton, to help
Yeah.
contribute to the economy. You know, you
Yeah.
got to give something back from time to time.
Yeah.
You know, just like when we look at the healthcare workers out there now, Charlton, and the first responders, I want to say thank you to those people every day because they allowed me the ability to come back home
Yeah.
dealing with this COVID-19 scenario, Charlton. They work tirelessly and effortlessly every day.
Yeah.
And they do not get enough recognition from the government, from the public, anybody. I mean, if without our medical care workers, you know, as we talk about sports and we talk about politics and everything else that's going on in the world, these are people who go to work. And they go to work to help people, to save people. They don't go in there and say, okay, you got to give me a little bit extra to help you out today, as you will get in a lot of places. You go to a restaurant, you know, you got to tip a maitre d' to get a better table. You know, you want to give a good tip for the waitress because they gave you good service and stuff. But when you think about these healthcare workers and first responders, Charlton, when you go in to see these people, they don't care what your economic status is. They don't care what your social status is.
No.
All that they care is that you are a human being that needs some help. And that's what they're there to help. They do that, and they don't ask for anything extra. And so as we look at these pandemic times that are going on in America and around the world and people wondering about who's going to be drafted where in the NFL draft, or is the NBA going to come back and have the playoffs? Is Major League Baseball going to play without fans? Is the NHL going to get back on the frozen pond? And any other sport that could potentially be played in America.
Yeah.
Think about those healthcare workers and first responders out there because they're not concerned about what game is going to be on television, what's not going to be on television, who's going to be drafted, who's going to sign where as a free agent.
Yep.
All they're thinking about is taking care of you as a person. You are number one priority. You are their number one draft pick. You are their number one free agent. When you go in and you need medical assistance, Charlton, that's all they care about is you.
Yeah, they really do. And everybody, if they've ever questioned that, I remember just going around to hospitals at different times, just visiting and realizing that you always go to the hospital with an expectation that you're going to get some help. No one goes there like you may go to a restaurant. You don't know if someone's going to help you or not, depending on how busy it is, at least when people were gone. Everyone that goes to a hospital, you always expect that you're going to get some help. They're never, well, for the most part, they're never closed, at least in the big cities. They're open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, especially in the emergency room. And there are people who are there to help everybody get better, and I really appreciate that, Big C. And so also, I want to just make this thought. I know people want to get sports back, and we talked about South Korea, how they were starting their baseball minor league. They couldn't care less. They can sacrifice somebody, Big C. But there's a little bit on the flip side of sports. There's a celebrity golf tournament, and it's being put on by Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, Tom Brady, and Peyton Manning. Is actually a good cause. If they're planning to play for charity to benefit COVID-19 relief, and I believe it's supposed to be sometime in May. And that, again, like we talk about what sports can be played and what can't be played. Well, golf is something that you can play without coming within 6 feet of somebody. Obviously, they can do it without spectators. I thought that was a good gesture because that's another way to raise money to give to people that need relief and help. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, I mean, you can put on any type of event that you choose to put on in America or anywhere around the world, Charlton. But when it comes to money, you can print money. The federal government can print money. They have an endless supply. The money is not backed by gold or silver certificates like it used to be in the 30s prior to World War II.
Yeah.
Money can be printed. It's just like when they gave out the $2.5 billion package.
Did you get your cut?
$2.5 trillion package.
Yeah.
All the government had to do was say, print $2.5 trillion and let's get it out to the public.
Yep.
You should not have to put people out there saying, okay, we got to hold a charitable event. How much money are you going to earn in a charitable event versus the government saying we're going to give a stimulus package of billions or trillions of dollars? When you talk about getting money to people who need it, I don't need to see an athlete saying, okay, I'm going to put on a charitable event.
Yeah.
That's great, okay? Because what they're trying to do is give some mental relief to people watching them participate.
Yeah.
But when you talk about helping people and getting the amount of money that's needed out to the people who need it, Charlton, you can't raise enough money in a charitable event versus Steve Mnuchin, the Treasury Secretary, saying, hey, let's print $500 million or $500 billion.
Yeah. Well, Big C, the fact of the matter, they have printed money. But I still want to see this, and I mean this with all my heart, mind, body, and soul. Whenever sports teams will play a game, you can see how many points somebody scored. what their completion, past completion percentage was, how many times they ran the ball, how many yards they got, what someone's ERA is in baseball. We all see. Did someone shoot at par in golf? We all see that. Has any website or public information PSA been given out to show who got a part at that first, I think, $350 billion? I know no corporations that have come on TV and said thank you. I know they're saying that Harvard has to give some money back. But wouldn't you think, for transparency, did you get any of that money? And if African Americans are the hardest hit, should they be the first ones to come on and say, yeah, I got some money from my company? Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Carlton, when you realistically take a look at it, small businesses got less than 2% of that money that was given out. I was talking with a friend of mine today that is with Southwest Airlines.
Yeah.
Southwest Airlines got bailed out. The last I checked, Southwest Airlines was not a small business in America. I believe it's the third largest airline in America, but they got the money from the stimulus, and so those employees are able to still get their money. Another friend talked to, they're part of Ruth's Chris Steakhouse.
Yeah.
A huge company in America. It's not a small business. They franchise. So if they franchise, they're not a small business. But Ruth's Chris got the money, not the franchisees.
Yeah.
So as we sit around and look, and this is the reason why the president fired the inspector general who was to oversee the money.
Yeah.
Because just like his son-in-law, Jared Christian, said, this belongs
Those are
to us.
ours.
This is ours. And
Yeah.
so when this money is being doled out and he's talking to the bankers, think about how many meetings that the president said that he's had with the major bankers in the U.S.
Yeah.
And it's not going to be any problem getting the money out.
That's what he
talking
said.
with the largest banks in the U.S.
Yeah.
And so for these banks to get this money, and his son-in-law basically was overseeing it, how much did they get off the top? 5, 10%? Because this money was gone in a matter of a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And I know a lot of people with small businesses that could not get any consideration from the bank.
I know, and it's real, too. Federal Reserve Act, it was set up by President Woodrow Wilson December 23rd, 1913. And as we know, after the Great Depression, they set it up so that banks could be solvent. The Fed Reserve, they do print notes, and they make sure that they keep up the highest rate of employment. They do that. They always want to have the lowest inflation, and the money is created out of a fund. It's not backed by gold. It's not taken out of taxpayers' money. They print it. So when they say that we have to have a charity or we got to take money out of the taxpayers, the Fed Reserve doesn't count on taxpayers. They print the money just like a slot machine that somebody owns. That's why when they say we have to find a way to pay down taxes, this money is not made by taxes. It's printed. It's printed like they can print anything. And so when they say they're out of money, it doesn't make any sense. They print the money. It's not backed by anything. Big C, your thoughts?
No, it's not. It's just the paper that they print on paper, the cloth, whatever it is. Whenever they print those notes, cut those sheets, and hand out those bundles, Charlton, it's there. It's at the discretion of the government.
Yeah.
And so as we look at it, everybody right now crying about sports because there's no live sports on, and everybody's looking forward to the NFL draft, and people talking about how Vegas was the biggest loser in this situation because it's closed down. The NFL draft is not going to be held there. They're talking about how many millions of dollars that this was costing Las Vegas by not being able to put on this spectacle for the NFL called the NFL draft. But, that's secondary when it comes to the health and welfare of people as far as how much money the NFL was not going to get out of this, how much money Vegas was not going to get out of it. What's the value of life in America?
Yeah.
As we constantly, daily come on air, us and every other sports and talk show out there, what is the value of life? That's the true question that people have to ask now. When we look at this situation of where we are, and they're talking about, okay, we've hit the crest. No, we have not hit the crest, because you can't say that you've only tested 1% of your population, and yet you know where this is going, because the next thing that's going to be hit from this pandemic is the food supply, Charlton. And that's what people are not
already happening.
To. As we look at people that are constantly coming up positives for this COVID, 2 of the largest meat processing plants have closed down in America this past week.
Yeah.
One in South Dakota, where the governor, who's a Republican, said that they didn't feel that the COVID was part of the meat processing plant. He felt that the workers brought it from home. And yet 1/3 of the employees at the meat processing plant tested positive. 1/3.
Yeah.
These are the people that deal with the largest pork processing plant in America. The Smithfield Pork.
Yeah.
They process the most pork of anybody in America. And it's hard to find products without pork in it on the meat rack.
Yeah.
And then Tyson Foods in Indiana, I believe it was, or Iowa. had to close down because they had 2/5 of their employees test positive. Tyson Foods, who hasn't seen a Tyson product?
Yeah.
You know, they do more chicken than anybody else. And so when you close down 2 of the largest meat processors, you know, when you vacuum seal a lot of that meat before you ship it out, chocolate, what's on the surface of it? They're talking about cleaning it.
Yeah.
People in there breathing.
Yeah.
So now all of a sudden you vacuum seal this COVID inside these packages. What's going to happen to the consumer out there as we talk about essential workers?
Yeah.
And those essential workers have COVID. What is that going to do to the rest of American society?
It does interrupt the food supply. I just, you know, as sports stadiums, they get the hot dogs and the hamburgers and pizza and everything that it comes from, but it has to be produced someplace. Ironically, in the world of sports and medicine, Big C, there's a doctor that says he was removed after pressing for rigorous vetting on treatments embraced by President Trump. And I think his name is Dr. Rick Bright. He was abruptly dismissed this week as the director of the Department of Health and Human Services Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. Biomedical Advanced Research and Development Authority. He was released because he pushed back on some things that POTUS was pushing and said we need to do more research. They removed him, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, yeah, Charlton, I mean, they removed him because this, whatever the drug is,
hydroxychloroquine.
Oxychloroquine, whatever it is.
Yeah.
My English is
hydroxychloroquine. It's all right.
It's oxychloroquine, whatever
Yeah.
it is.
Uh-huh.
But, you know, test studies have shown, Charlton, that the death rate of people who have gotten COVID has been at 11%, okay?
Yeah.
The people that have used this drug, their death rate has been twice that at 22%. And this is a drug that the president has been pushing, even though he said he's not a doctor.
Well, they own
he
stock
doesn't know
in it.
anything about medical science, but what do you got to lose by taking it? This is what the president said.
Yeah.
Well, what you have to lose is that you have twice the chance of dying by using this drug because that's not what this drug was meant for.
Yeah.
And this drug was meant for other ailments that people have, and those people that have those ailments now can't get the drug because the president was pushing it for something else.
Yeah.
So a false narrative by the White House has cost people their lives on both sides. But here it is. Anyone who doesn't play your puppet up on stage and say, yes, Mr. President, thank you, Mr. President, you're doing a great job, Mr. President, then you're at risk to lose your job if you don't lie to the American public because that's been the mantra of his presidency. But when you want to go up there and lie because you want to stimulate your base, and I wonder how many people from his base took the drug. You know, since they all want to believe him. Let's see those statistics. But when you want to cost Americans their lives, and he's had no empathy throughout this entire COVID ordeal, Charlton, since January. There's been no empathy from the White House or the presidency about the loss of American lives.
Yeah, I mean, they come and say that, but they're still trying to overturn Obamacare as soon as they, I mean, it's amazing. They never talk about that. I do want to just mention, because I'm a big pusher of science, and we'll touch on a little bit of sports in a little bit, but there's a study that was published earlier this month by the New England Journal of Medicine. They found the drug that it did improve breathing in some patients, and the study was a small study, just 53 patients, but they did find some improvements with that, even though they want to do more testing. It's an antiviral drug, and it's worked by blocking the virus from replicating itself. So there is light at the end of the tunnel, but that was done by science. And it's funny that a doctor who's one of the head researchers in medicine, when he came out and said, hold on, POTUS. POTUS got rid of him. That doesn't make any sense to me, Big C, but it is all fair in love and war. But I do want people to pay attention to remdesivir, and it's a medical science, and doctors are in a rush to find a vaccine. It has shown some promise against COVID-19, but it came from medical. It came from science, not the White House. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, Charlton, to be realistic about how devastating this COVID is, and, you know, I don't know if anybody's ever ran a race or anything like that.
Yeah.
And, you know, go out and try to run a mile.
I ran a
see how you
5 mile.
feel afterwards. You know, this takes everything away from you that you ever have. You know, I still have a hard time breathing and have a hard time talking. I went out today for the first time, and I don't know when. There's a hill in the back of my house. I wanted to walk up onto this hill.
Yeah.
And it's about 20 feet to the top of it.
Yeah.
By the time I got to the top of the hill, and I have steps, I was completely gasped. I mean, I got up there, I was having a hard time breathing. That's what COVID has done to me. It has taken away my lung capacity. It's taken away my ability to ingest oxygen into my system. And I stood up there for a while, and eventually I came back down. I walked around my house twice. I was perspiring like crazy.
Yeah.
All I did was walk around the house. I wasn't at a rapid pace, just a nice slow pace.
Yep.
But COVID is something that's that's real and it's hard on the organs. And this is what people don't understand. If you feel any kind of weakness or any alter in your health, you need to seek help.
Yeah.
Because once this gets onto your system, fortunately, I'm not a young man, but I was in good enough health that my body was able to withstand these things, because I lost 30 pounds, Charlton, while I was in the hospital. 30 pounds.
Yeah.
I mean, and this was gone in 2 weeks. It just dawned for me. Even though I needed to lose the weight, I wasn't expecting to lose it that way.
Yeah.
And when you lose weight that rapidly and you're not doing anything physically to keep yourself, strong, you become very weak. So your whole body starts to shut down on you. We're talking about your kidneys. We're talking about your liver, your heart, your respiratory system.
Yeah.
All of these things are affected by that. And I appreciate medical science, for doing the rampant work that they're doing, trying to find an antibody for these things, Charlton, to find a drug. But we're talking a year away. I mean, realistically, medical science operates at a breakneck pace. But when you watch the workers in the hospital and all the efforts that they put forth, they are testing you. I mean, they came in and took so much blood from me, I thought I was a blood bank. Every time I turn around, I still got all these, I look like a junkie, both arms.
Yeah.
I had dual IVs, come in every hour or two, got to take blood again.
Yep.
It's like, couldn't you use the last quart that you had? That you took?
No, they need new blood.
When we look at this, Charlton, I mean, it's going to come eventually. But, I don't know if it's going to come in the year 2020.
Well, I just want to just have people pay attention to what's happening with medical science. It is called remdesivir, and it's been in practice over in England, in the UK, in Hamburg, Germany. It's been also right now in Nebraska, a lot of trials. I think they have some trials going on over at Stanford also. So medicine's on top of it. It may take some time. They don't have to cure it. They just got to treat it. They don't cure high blood pressure. They just treat it. They don't cure diabetes. They just treat it. They can treat things, and hopefully there'll be light at the end of the tunnel for that. Really looking forward to that, Big C. I wanna just say it is Happy Earth Day for a lot of people. A friend of mine had sent me a text, said, Charlton, Happy Earth Day. I thought every day was Earth Day because I'm on the Earth every day. But it was first celebrated 50 years ago, Big C. And I think for the things that people have been through in time, there was a song I was listening to. It was by Marvin Gaye, and it was called What's Going On. I'm going to try to sing it for 3 seconds. What's going on? Tell me what's going on. And he sang it a lot better than I just did. I don't think there's anyone can test that, Big C. But it talked about how love can conquer hate, how war is not the answer, how so many people are dying from wars and things that we do to poison our environment. And it's amazing because on Earth Day, we're talking about how to get rid of, President Trump, didn't he say that we're in a war? Last I know, we're not in a war. We're in a medical research era. But Marvin Gaye was so prescient when he sang that song, What's Going On, and here we are, Earth Day started 50 years ago. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, as you think about it, and it's been said over the years, Charlton, that the Earth is crying out against all that's been done to it. When you think about all the chemicals and everything else that's been released into the atmosphere, and the mistreatment of the water and the land, and when we think about pandemics like this, is this Earth getting back at mankind? Because when you think about most of the horrific things that have occurred, they were not here 100 years ago. They were not here 200 years ago.
Yeah.
But as we look at the advancement, as they call, of American society and technology, and the pollutants that have continuously been dumped into our atmosphere and into our lands, it gives back. I mean, it's just like if you take something and leave it on the counter in a plastic bag and you forget to refrigerate it for a week.
Yeah.
You open up that bag, you got to open up every door and window in the house. Because the house
I've done that before, yep.
and so you got to look at Mother Nature in that same light, Charlton, as we look at these pandemics and everything else that's going on.
Yeah.
Mother Nature, is a wonderful thing when you look at it. When you wake up, you see the blue skies, and you're able to breathe the air.
Yeah.
You got to give Mother Nature credit for being more intelligent than what man is.
Yeah.
Mother Nature is what we live in every day.
Yeah.
Whether it's a storm, whether it's a sunny day, all of these things, whether it rains, it's part of Mother Nature. It's the earth continuously cleansing itself.
Yeah.
Trying to rid itself of problems that it has. And so as we look at these pandemics, and everyone is trying to question where it comes from, Earth constantly cleanses itself.
Yeah.
It honestly does. But as man has constantly tried to alter where nature is, we've always had something come back and affect negatively mankind.
Yeah, and we'll find this too shall pass. It's just a matter of giving science the chance, and then the earth knows how to heal itself. It's amazing when you plant food and vegetables in the ground that it actually reproduces itself. Isn't that amazing? Something in the universe makes it happen. We're going to take the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause, and when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about what's happening in the world of sports. I know leading up to the draft coming up tomorrow, a lot of good old boys are salivating about that, but I'm salivating about Earth Day, and we really look forward to talking about it more when we come back in just a moment. All right, we are back from the Big C timeout, also known as the Big C pause. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And two apps that I really love are by Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear Welcome to the Show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing, and I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Making sure that I show appreciation for the affiliation with Valley Homes Weekly TV on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, and TV53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal to recruit 100 real estate brokers, putting their property listings on TV, just like McDonald's, just like car dealerships. Sports teams do it too. 800-772-8624. That's 800-772-8624. Really looking forward to that. Big C, I know the world is changing, and vaccines help eradicate diseases from syphilis, gonorrhea, polio, whooping cough, measles, the flu vaccine. Hopefully coronavirus will be here soon too. I want to really touch on a little bit of what's going on in the sports world because they're all impacted by coronavirus and COVID-19. I can't find a sports show nowadays because everybody's talking about COVID-19, Big C. I think a lot of good old boys have taken their head out of the sand. When it comes to women's college basketball, Notre Dame University, women's head coach Muffet McGraw, she retires after 33 years, a Hall of Fame career with the Fighting Irish, and also capturing 2 women's national championships. Really has been putting Notre Dame on the map more so than the football team of the last 2 decades. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, when you look at the success that Muffet McGraw has had as a head coach at the University of Notre Dame, and you think about 33 years in one position, you know,
yeah.
And I wish her all the well. And I hope that the way that she left the university was the way that she wanted to leave the university and nothing else was involved in that. She won her last national championship just 2 years ago, Charlton, when she beat UConn for the ladies' national championship. But when you think about a storied career at a university and the winningest coach in all sports history at that university, Muffet McGraw did a marvelous job in developing young women there at South Bend, Charlton, getting them ready for the professional and private world out there. And, you know, all kudos to her for doing a marvelous job with those young ladies at Notre Dame.
You know, ironically, I was up late last night watching I think it's called Love and Basketball, Shania Lathan and Omar Epps, and I thought it was a great show. Especially, I kept running back the part where she kissed him. He was going to get married to another woman, and she shows up like 5 years later saying, "You know, I've loved you since I was 11." It made me wimpy, Big C. It made me a little shed a tear. Maybe I had allergies or what, but it was amazing about women's basketball. And they showed the Great Western Forum in Inglewood, which is now going to be home of the new stadium, SoFi Stadium, for the Rams. But it's great to see women's basketball and some of the great minds. I know Tyra Vanderbilt out here at Stanford. A lot of great women coaches around the country, and they've done a lot to get their programs off on the right foot. I want to just get your thoughts as I transition a little bit to the NFL. You know what we missed by not having the NFL down in Las Vegas, Big C? You know how we said how Las Vegas is a party town, but it's like jumping into. I'm a germaphobe, so if you ever go to these big casinos and they have the resorts and they have a swimming pool that sits, it will take 400 people in the swimming pool, Big C. Could you imagine how much body fluid is left in that pool? I've never wanted to get into the pools or the jacuzzis, and maybe Las Vegas is benefiting a lot of athletes for not having it there this year. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, it's not even about benefiting the athletes. When you think about Las Vegas, a party town, it's always had an opportunity to do the lavish beyond what you're going to do elsewhere. Whether you're at the pool at Caesars or you're up at the pool on top of the Palms, just great atmosphere, and that's what Vegas is all about. Go there, let your hair down if you do have hair.
I shave mine.
But it's there to go have fun. And Vegas is going to come back like everything else.
Oh yeah.
But it's the adult playland. It's the playland for adults, just like Disneyland is the playland for the kids.
Yep.
You go there, and what goes on in Vegas, don't take your cell phone with a camera on it. Just leave it in Vegas.
They got cameras for you. They got cameras for you. I love Las Vegas. My favorite hotels are the Bellagio and the MGM. The Bellagio because it has the fountains, and being able to look down on the fountains is pretty nice. But what we're really missing, I think it would have been one of the most celebrated ways that the NFL can really showcase. I think they were down in the South last year. Nashville was fine. They were also in New York City not long ago, but it would have been amazing. But I want to get your thoughts, too. How much is a season not starting on time? I think it's in danger, but maybe not, Big C, because we know they're playing in South Korea. Maybe Goodell's going to go over to South Korea and going to start testing their athletes and see if they turned out fine. Baseball and football, they're still a contact sport. But the New Orleans Saints, they scrapped all full season programs for 2020. They can't stop it and restart it like a race car. Big C, your thoughts?
It's just like I was saying last night, Jonathan. I feel that the start of the season is in jeopardy, and I realistically don't see, if the NFL season starts, that it starts before the end of September.
Yeah.
You just can't take the risk of putting these athletes out there saying, well, we have to play the games. No, you do not have to play the games. There is no mandate anywhere saying that any sports organization has to start at a particular date.
Yeah.
This comes down to money versus common sense. And when you talk about putting athletes in the way of passages, they tell everybody wash your hands for 20 seconds? Is that what they tell people?
Yeah.
To wear a mask? So how in the hell are you going to wash your hands for 20 seconds after every play on a football field?
Yeah.
Don't shake hands. What do offensive linemen do? They hug everybody.
They don't tackle anybody.
Yeah. It don't make no difference where it is.
Yeah.
And you're talking about hitting somebody on their sweaty butt for making a good play and all these things, the chest bumps and all of that. So as we look at the New Orleans Saints, and I applaud Sean Payton for getting rid of all off-season workouts, just eliminating. We talked about that yesterday, remember?
Yeah.
What are the teams going to do after the draft? Normally they fly players in to have this press conference, introduce their first-round draft pick, sometimes second-round draft pick to the media. That's not going to be able to occur. Now that you got all off-season workouts canceled by the New Orleans Saints, I feel that that's just the first step of the NFL starting.
Well,
and so we're not going to do that. And you can't go out and play sports without being in condition. You have to have your timing down.
Yeah.
So realistically, I see all sports, Charlton, being the potential of not playing the rest of 2020. Not that I don't want to see sports,
right?
Because I'm a rabid fan like everybody else, but I'm also a realistic person about health and welfare of individuals and human beings.
Yeah.
And you can't put the athletes as well as you cannot put the fans, because you're going to tell me if the games are being played, the fans are going to be happy sitting at home, and they spent their lives sitting in stadiums.
Yeah, it's interesting that Peyton, he actually contracted COVID-19 also, so he's been like the guy that really, instead of reading about swimming, he actually dreamt in the swimming pool. So I know you guys can relate to a lot where you've been through things, and the health, it has to be top of the mind. It can't be, oh my God, what are we going to do if we don't have a kickoff? Like a lot of good old boys were crying about that. But think about this, even with the fact that we're not going to get all the lights in Las Vegas and all the glamour and the glitz, and they're going to have the scantily clad women that they've always tried to put up there for some reason. I remember when I started working around the NFL, and I used to go into the Oakland Coliseum and get ready for the Raider games, and they would have some gorgeous women. And I thought, well, maybe these guys have maybe their wives are all lined up outside of the stadium, but it wasn't wives, if that makes any sense. I think Las Vegas moved to Northern California, but they were going to make that part of the show, too. You can't do that if you're on a webinar called Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, but I appreciate the webinar because the draft has become a dramatization show.
Yeah.
It's a reality TV show because all of what goes on at the draft really is not all necessitated. You put a lot of players in a situation where they're uncomfortable, if they're not drafted, where people have been projecting all these extras. No, he's going in the first round. All of a sudden he falls out of the first round. No, he's going in the top 10. No, he goes in the bottom part of the 20s.
Yeah.
And so you make a lot of these young men uncomfortable, even though they're going to make a lot of money.
Oh,
but
yeah.
why does it have to be about a show? Go back to what things used to be. I mean, football is a very intimate sport.
Yeah.
And what I mean by intimate is that you're always in contact with people. And so to have a draft, and that draft does nothing beyond just saying somebody's name at that point and having them parade across the stage like they're a racehorse that's getting ready to, to put out the pasture or whatever.
Yeah.
But, it's about the game. It's about the individual. Say where a guy is going to go. He's not going to minicamp, to start with.
Yeah.
So this is, once this draft occurs this weekend, that following week will not be any minicamps.
Yeah.
So as we think about things being altered from what they were, that's just part of the show. That there's no draft spectacle. There's no minicamp the following week. And who knows when will they sign that contract, and who knows when will they get paid? Because there's not going to be a sense of urgency now, so guys can hold out.
Yeah.
Holding out means nothing now. And if you think about it, that's always been a big part of players not signing, especially in the first round. They're holding out to see what the guy ahead of them or behind them gets.
Yeah.
There's no pressing urgency now from the NFL teams to sign the players that they draft, and they can hold on to that money as long as they want now.
Yeah, they'll hold on to it, but we know guys are going to spend it as long as, if they can get paid in the fire race go off, they're going to have to spend that money. So I want to get your thoughts on a few things. With less, think about it, the NFL draft less than 24 hours away. The success as a college football players, it doesn't always translate to stardom in the NFL, just like a guy who's an All-American high school player doesn't translate well when he's playing Division I football. Over the years, we've seen many top NFL prospects, and the careers have fizzled out, including Heisman Trophy winners. You have Matt Leinart that played in one of the greatest games I've ever thought I'd see in college football, the Rose Bowl, the 2005 Rose Bowl, and they played USC down at the Rose Bowl against Texas. Even Vince Young, I mean, that was one of the best performances I've ever seen from a college quarterback, and I thought it would have translated over into the NFL, and I think it would have if they would have given him the chance the way they're giving Lamar Jackson a chance now, and also Patrick Mahomes. I think he was a better athlete than both of those guys. Robert Griffin III, we know he had a knee injury. Troy Smith, I remember how talented he was, but oftentimes, Big C, it's just about who you have access to. I mean, Doug Flutie was a star player in college, didn't have the same success in the NFL. He had success in Canada, but oftentimes it's your system, not necessarily that you're just not as good as they thought. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, but also it's about work ethic when you think about it there. When Doug Flutie came out of college, he went to the USFL, had success there. You got to realize Doug Flutie has a winning record in the NFL, and he played with 4 different teams, and yet he has a winning record and could not keep a job. He never had a losing season when he was a starting quarterback that could not keep a job in the NFL because it was not ready for his stature. You look at Troy Smith, a Heisman Trophy winner out of Ohio State, had an attitude problem. We watched him on the sidelines during a Monday night game wanting to blow up and fight with the head coach.
Yeah, I remember that.
He was in San Francisco.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things are temperamental when it comes to players working out in situations. Vince Young had some off-the-field incidents that side-railed his career. He couldn't stay out of the strip clubs. And so there was a lot of things that happened. Robert Griffin, unfortunately, had the devastating knee injury, even though he's still the backup quarterback with the Ravens.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of extenuating circumstances. You talked about Matt Leinart. He should have came out as a junior. But when he came out, he could not play with the speed of the NFL. You think about he was one of those guys in college that was surrounded by a lot of great athletes who would play in the NFL for a long time.
Yeah.
And he was the benefactor of that in college.
Yeah. A lot like Gino Torretta out of Miami, Patrick Ross out of Miami. A lot of the good old boys, they had that. They were loaded with the receivers, and their running backs were loaded. The D-lines were loaded, so it made you look a lot better. Also, I do want to take a look at some of the other big name, the college stars, and they fizzled as pros. Maybe it's just timing. Whatever it is, it is. I take a look at some of the other big names. Reggie Bush out of USC, I thought he was one of the most dynamic running backs I've ever seen in college football. Jamarcus Russell out of LSU. Brady Quinn out of Notre Dame. He was much heralded coming out of Notre Dame. And I remember they had a game called the Bush Push at Notre Dame. That was one of the iconic football games. Peter Warrick out of Florida State. I thought he would be the next Deion Sanders. Remember Darren McFadden, the running back out of Arkansas? He was off the hook. Ike Hilliard. There's another good old boy that ran the ball well. Riddell Anthony. There was Danny Warfel out of Florida. I thought he would have made it. And then there's Heath Schuler out of Tennessee. But they didn't transition well into the NFL. Was it system, Big C, or was it the fact that they were surrounded by so much talent on their teams, it made them look good, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, it's a double-edged sword when you look at those things, whether it's system or not. We talk about that. Going high in the draft doesn't always mean that you're going to end up in a good situation.
Yeah.
You take Brady Quinn, for example. When he was at Notre Dame, he was coached by Charlie Weiss, who had been the offensive coordinator for the New England Patriots for their first 2 Super Bowl victories.
Yep.
He goes to Notre Dame, everybody thinking that, Brady Quinn will be the first quarterback taken in the draft. Yet he was the second first-round draft pick of the Browns that year, and his career fizzled out just like his draft pick at number 22 in the draft. So Jamarcus Russell, he was a guy who was destined to fail the day he got drafted because all he did was gain weight. Didn't go to training camp, holding out, partying with his friends, didn't stop for DUIs and everything else.
Yep.
All he looked at was how much money he was going to make. He never thought about taking care of his body. When you look at Peter Warrick, a wide receiver out of Florida State, everyone thought that he would be one of the next dynamic game breakers.
I thought he would too.
His career could never get started while he was in Cincinnati. He was injury plagued the whole time we were there. When I looked at Riedel Anthony and the other kid down in Florida, I can't remember his name right now.
Werfel.
These two guys, along with Danny Werfel, they were 1,000-yard receivers on the same season at Florida, winning a national title with Steve Spurrier.
Yeah.
Their games could not translate because when you look at the type of offense that they ran a spot offense where you threw the ball to a spot. You didn't have to beat anybody. You just threw the ball to a spot.
Yep.
Because they were much more superior athletes to other people. When you looked at Reggie Bush, talk about being a dynamic runner. He was a guy that was versatile, but he was not dominant in anything. He wasn't going to take on anybody. He was looking for the sideline. And in the NFL, you have to have the willingness to take people on. He was often injured because he was never put in tough situations when he was at USC.
Yeah, there's a lot of times where things just have to line up for the right athletes and the right team and coaches. They got to use you in the right way too. There's a long list, Big C, when you think about it, from the 2007 quarterback draft class. I think Jamarcus Russell, LSU, Brady Quinn, Notre Dame. There was Kevin Cobb of Houston, John Beck, BYU. Remember those guys? Drew Stanton, Michigan State. There's a lot of them, Big C. There was Trent Edwards that came out of Stanford. I thought he would have been great. Heisman Trophy winner Troy Smith of Ohio State. You mentioned he had the attitude problem. Was it attitude, or was it the fact that he thought that he was still at Ohio State, Big C? Your thoughts?
Well, I mean, but that's it. You have to, in the NFL, you have to conform or get gone.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. You can't walk in there, well, I'm a Heisman Trophy winner. Look around the league, there's a whole lot of them, okay?
Yeah.
I accomplished this at Ohio State. And you think about the year that Troy Smith won the Heisman Trophy. I think he passed for 2,400 yards that year, Charlton, and he won the Heisman Trophy. 2,400 yards. 2,400 yards don't get you through half a season. Joe Burrow just had, 6,000,
yes.
5,000?
Yeah.
Had over 5,000 yards this year at LSU. Joe Burrow passed more than twice as many yards as Troy Smith did.
Yeah.
But the difference is how you handle yourself, Charlton. You can't think that, because you didn't go in the first round, and that was a big part of where Troy Smith was.
Yeah.
He was a mid-round draft pick, and so he became a journeyman because he could not say in the pros that he was better than other people other than in his own mind.
Yeah, and then again, when you're in college and you get the favorite treatment, that happens too. There's a kid by the name of Jordan Palmer that played at UTEP. Tyler Thigpen, he played at Coastal Carolina. There's 9 quarterbacks, and none of them threw for more than 6,033 yards. It was Edwards, and I think he had 28 touchdowns in Cobb in their NFL career. And so when you think about that, there'll be a lot of hype made about the next quarterbacks coming up. And even thinking about that, those quarterbacks, I see how they all got the opportunity. And I know times change, but it's such a shame that guys like Warren Moon was not given the chance in the NFL, even though they won a Rose Bowl at the University of Washington in the Pac-8 at that time. But he went on to Canada, had success. A lot of other players went up there and had success. Joe Theismann had success. There's I think Ferragamo played in Canada, had success, came back, also played at the Super Bowl. So oftentimes it's just those guys that didn't get opportunity would have done a lot better than the guys who maybe got drafted and didn't show as well. Big C, your thoughts?
Well, that's where the ego comes into play. Are you willing to play, or your ego won't let you go to a certain place? You talk about the quarterbacks who went to Canada and came back. I think it was Joe Kapp was the first quarterback to go to Canada and come back down and play in a Super Bowl. He was quarterback for the Vikings in Super Bowl IV down in New Orleans against the Kansas City Chiefs. Joe Theismann quarterbacked in 2 Super Bowls, one down in Pasadena against the Dolphins and one down in Tampa against the Raiders. Warren Moon never got a chance to make it to a Super Bowl, but you got to take the path that's best for you.
Yeah.
When you're an athlete, there's not enough positions to employ every player who comes out of college. But when somebody's offering you a weekly paycheck
Take the money
to play the game that kids play for free, sometimes you got to put your ego to the side and go play the game.
Yeah.
You never know when that great opportunity is going to bounce up and say, all right, here's a chance for you to shine.
Yeah.
That one shining moment that you always talk about. And that's what athletes have to be ready for. And you talked about those 9 quarterbacks that were drafted in 2007, and Edwards was the only one to pass over 6,000 yards in his career.
Yeah.
The only one. That's a season for Patrick Mahomes
Yeah.
now, seems like.
Yeah.
Within the next couple of years, he'll hit a 6,000-yard mark.
Yeah.
And then Kevin Cobb, who was drafted by the Eagles, originally traded to the Arizona Cardinals, and he was the one who had 28 touchdowns.
Yeah.
But he had a huge free agency contract with the Cardinals when they shipped him out there, Charlton, and he got paid a lot of money, and he only lasted half a season before his career was over, and Carson Palmer ended up taking over. So it's about whatever position you're being put in. We
Yep.
never know which athlete is going to pan out. And that's why it's a great turkey shoot when it comes to the draft. They say, oh, this is a franchise player. No, a franchise player can be found in the 6th round. Ask Tom Brady. We all know what he did, being found in the 6th round. And
Yeah.
we just spoke about Warren Moon earlier being a free agent, as well as Joe Theismann was a free agent. So there's no guarantee. You talked about 9 quarterbacks being drafted.
Yep.
9 quarterbacks. And none of them passed for more than 6,300 yards in their NFL career.
Well, look at Kurt Warner. Maybe some NFL GMs and scouts need to go to the grocery stores. He played in the Arena League, and then he was boxing shelves at a grocery store before he came in and became part of the greatest show on turf, and actually went to 2 Super Bowls with the Rams. They won one against the Tennessee Titans and lost one to the New England Patriots. So it's about the opportunity. So there are, in the last few minutes, Big C, there's 4, when you think about it, 4 top-flight quarterbacks from the West Coast in this year's NFL draft. Jacob Eason out of Washington. You have Anthony Gordon out of Washington State that you seem very high on. Justin Herbert out of Oregon. And then there's a guy by the name of Jordan Love out of Utah State that might be better of all of them. Which quarterback do you think will have the most success in the first 3 years, if in the right system in the NFL? Big C, your thoughts?
And you said it key, Charlton, coming down to the right system. When I look at Jason Eason
Yeah.
and Justin Herbert, you can't tell the difference between the two of them other than the color of their uniform.
Yeah.
They're the same in stature. They're both 6'6", 230 pounds, cannons for arms, can throw, have a little bit of mobility.
Yeah.
They're both from the Pacific Northwest. Eason grew up in Washington as well as Herbert grew up in Oregon.
Yeah.
So they're right there in their home state. And it's a turkey shoot, when it comes down to that. It's about who an organization likes. Because if you look at their skill set, they're typical of each other. Anthony Gordon, I love Anthony Gordon out of the Washington State, Mike Leach's disciple.
Yeah.
This is a guy who will chuck the football all over the yard. He reminds me a lot, if you go back to the University of Houston when they had Andre Ware and
Yep.
David
The
Klingler.
gunslinger. Yep.
And they were throwing the ball everywhere in that run and gun offense that they had up there. But Anthony Gordon is more of a polished pocket passer, but he's not the big name because of those guys that played on both sides of him in Washington and Oregon,
Yeah.
up in Seattle and down in Corvallis. But, and everybody, it's a wishy-washy thing with Love out of Utah State. Everybody saying, well, he had a bad year. But the year before, when he hadn't lost 9 offensive starters, you got to
He was
realize
good,
it was
but-
just him and one other guy returning to an
The
offense,
whole line. Yeah.
as well as a new coaching staff.
Yeah.
And so just like we talk about teams with new head coaches in the NFL, once they get started, that it's going to take a while for them to catch up.
Yeah.
That's the same situation Jordan Love was in Utah, is that he was a one-man show. They knew that they could concentrate on everybody else because he was the one guy that they needed to shut down.
Yeah, he was. I mean, it's gonna be. I'm happy for the guys that get the opportunity, and may they find the right system. May they stay healthy, and may they also learn not to cuss out the coach, especially when you haven't won a Super Bowl yet, Big C. If we go to the good old boys in the Midwest, we have hundreds of fans in South Dakota at auto races, despite the fear of the coronavirus. There's a pair of auto races at the Dakota Speedway in Sioux Falls, South Dakota. They're going to go ahead to hold 2 auto races. They're expected to draw hundreds of fans this weekend, even as the governor warns against attending them. And I know there's, like you said, there's always a sacrificial lamb. The governor said they're just gonna sit back and wait and see what happens. For most people, the coronavirus causes mild to moderate symptoms. such as fever and cough that clear up in about 2 or 3 weeks. And for other people, they're not so lucky. Why are they having race cars going around racetracks in South Dakota, Big C, this weekend? And the governors are saying, hey, we're going to let them be the guinea pigs and see what happens, Big C. Your thoughts?
Well, you have to understand the governor of South Dakota, Charlton. She chose not to put a stay-in-place order in the state. The governor of South Dakota, she also refused to shut down Smithfield Pork Plant in South Dakota.
Yeah.
The number 5 producing pork plant in the world. She refused to shut it down. They had 1/3 of their workers test positive for COVID-19 at this pork-producing plant at Smithfield Foods in South Dakota. And she blamed it not on the working conditions at the plant, but that they all lived in close confinements away from work. And they brought it from home to work. They didn't get it at work, Charlton. It doesn't make a difference if one person brings it from home, then you're exposing everybody at work. And so they refused to put a stay-in-place order in South Dakota. And they refused to close down places that had a pandemic breakout in the workplace.
Yeah.
This is how mentally vamped the governor of South Dakota is.
Kristi
She does
Noem.
not care.
Yeah.
She puts people in harm's way. And yes, I'll say yes, she's a Republican.
Yeah.
And she said, well, there's no reason to be cautious in South Dakota because she doesn't feel that there's an outbreak, even though they're not testing in the state.
Well, I wonder.
Statewide.
I wonder if her name is Kristi Noem. I wonder if she'll be there waving the start flag. You know how they stand up, start your engines. Maybe she could put her money where her mouth is.
Waving the flag. Will she be sitting in the middle of the crowd?
Yeah,
that's the thing you have to look at. When you talk about people not putting in stay-in-place orders, just like the governor in Georgia, Brian Kemp, just like the governor in Tennessee, just like the governor in South Carolina and Kentucky, when they don't put in stay-in-place orders, and then when you see people around them and they all got masks on and they're practicing social distancing, but they're telling everybody else to go there. I want to see all these people say we don't need a stay-in-place order to go stand in the middle of a crowd and start shaking hands and all those things, rubbing their face
they might do
with
it.
their hands after they shook somebody's hand, and then say this for cause.
Yeah, I know. Like I said, there's always been human guinea pigs. Sometimes they just don't tell you, Big C. That's why they got Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports 24 hours a day, 7 days a week on the #1 podcast network in the universe, iHeartRadio Podcast. You can follow Big C Sports on Apple Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Google Podcasts. You can follow Big C Sports on Spreaker.com. And there's 2 apps that I love called Google and Alexa. Just say Google or Alexa, play Big C Sports Podcast. You will hear from our sponsors. You will hear welcome to the show. I will introduce Big C as the Mystic from 3,000 miles away, and he will do his thing. And I really appreciate the way things are going with Big C Sports. You can follow Big C Sports on Xfinity, Comcast TV, Roku TV, Apple TV, Amazon Fire TV, and a lot of smart TVs all over the universe. Really appreciate that. Also, the affiliation with Valley Homes weekly TV show on Dish TV, DirecTV, AT&T Uverse, TV 53, home of the San Francisco Giants. Just tell them Big C sent you. The goal simple: recruit 100 real estate brokers and let their TV work for you the same way it works for McDonald's, the same way it works for their car dealerships, and it also works for sports teams when we do have sports. So really looking forward to that. Also, there's some things you can only take cameras into certain places. You can't take them in the restrooms, but you can have them out on city streets. And unfortunately, when you think about the good old boy by the name of Alex Cora, Major League Baseball, Boston Red Sox, they lose a draft pick, and Alex Cora is banned through the 2020 postseason for sign stealing when he was with the Houston Astros. I learned from some good old friends in college that were from Texas. They said if you're not cheating, you're not trying, Big C, in the final 3 minutes.
Well, I mean, what is banning somebody for the 2020 season? It hasn't started.
What season,
It may not even play at all.
Yeah.
So being banned for the 2020 season means nothing. Baseball, I think the last time I checked, you have like 50 rounds in the draft.
Yeah.
So you're losing a draft pick in baseball. That's like saying a person didn't show up at the stadium and utilize the ticket to walk to a game.
Yeah, it's all fire level war. Last story: Will J-Lo and her friend? They're not married yet, so I'm just gonna say friend. You say he's just a friend. You say he's just a friend. Is Major League Baseball going to let minority owners get in the group? Big C, your thoughts?
I mean, you have to understand the group. It's not just Major League Baseball, Charlton. It's everybody that's there. It's like when Derek Jeter said he's going to forego his $5 million salary. He's a partner with the organization. So what does it mean, $5 million?
Nothing.
It's not like he's going to have to go get in the food stamp line anywhere anytime soon.
Right.
Professional sports is a fraternity where you look at ownership of people who look like each other, who have the same economic background of each other, who are billionaires, not multimillionaires, billionaires. So they have money to waste. And so unless you're in that billionaire category as an individual, there's no door that's going to open for you.
I believe they blocked a lot of other wealthy African Americans from buying an NFL franchise. I believe it's Carolina Panthers, but it's all fair and level war. Big C.
Yeah, but see, that was a group. It wasn't individuals. You have to understand, the NFL has individual owners. That's their mandate. That's their bylaw. You can't come in there and say, we got 8 people with $12 billion. And
they all pitching the money together.
It's one individual because there's only one individual allowed at the table to represent the team. So when they hold a vote, there's 32 votes. Only one person is going to represent that organization, and that's the individual owner.
Well, we'll see what happens. Big C, back in the day, there's a man by the name of Drew Boudini Brown. He was known as Muhammad Ali's right-hand man, and he would always tell Ali, with all you got to use, how can you lose? Rumble, young men rumble. Big C, what are you looking forward to in the sports universe?
Well, Charlton, I'm working on getting these libations on ice for tomorrow night, but I'd also be remiss not to be thanking the healthcare workers and the first responders out there. I'm one of the individuals that they've helped and saved that allows me to get on the air every day and talk. And I'll always be in debt and grateful to these people for what they've done for me and many other Americans and the people around the world. And if you ever think that life is great, don't think that you can get by without dealing with medical care workers, Charlton. They're the greatest people in the world.
They are the greatest people on Earth Day, and they're the greatest people in the universe. You can find out more every Monday through Friday at 5 and 6 p.m. worldwide when you follow Big C Sports on the Big C Sports Network, on the #1 network in the United States of America. And Big C Sports has been voted the #1 sports show in the universe, according to Big C and them good old boys down south. As we always tell you, it's never, ever an excuse for domestic violence. If you know any man or woman going through that garbage, please pick up the phone and call 911, because no man or woman should ever have to go through that garbage on their own. And as we always tell you on every Big C Sports show, we thank you, we appreciate you, and we hope that you have a super fantastic day.